It's a typical evening in central London. Crowds flow out of underground stations, streetlights flicker to life, and people hurry along the pavements. Amid the bustle, a young woman steps out of a cafe, phone in hand, texting as she walks. In a split second, a figure on a scooter swerves through traffic, snatches the phone right out of her grasp, and vanishes into the labyrinth of streets. She's left stunned and empty-handed, another victim of a crime that has become alarmingly common in modern London. In recent years, theft has surged across this city of over 8 million. It's not the grand heists or notorious bank jobs making headlines, but rather a wave of everyday crimes plaguing ordinary Londoners. Mobile phone thefts, bicycle thefts, and clever scams. These are not isolated incidents, they have become an unwelcome feature of daily life in London, cutting across neighbourhoods from the bustling West End to quiet suburban streets. As the sun sets over the Thames, countless petty crimes are unfolding in the shadows, undermining the sense of security in this global metropolis. Mobile phones have become as essential as wallets or keys, and criminals have noticed. In 2023, over 100,000 mobile phones were reported stolen in London, an average of roughly one phone every 5 minutes. Think about that. By the time this narrator finishes this sentence, somewhere in London another person has likely been robbed of their phone. The city now accounts for an astonishing share of all phone thefts in England. And it's getting worse. Recent figures show phone snatchings jumped by over 150% in just 1 year. These thefts happen anywhere, at any time. Often they occur in bursts. Thieves on mopeds or bicycles cruise through busy areas at dusk, scoping out people absorbed in their screens. A common tactic is to ride up from behind a victim who is texting or mapping directions, and in one swift motion, rip the phone out of their hand. By the time the person realizes what's happened, the thief is already zigzagging through traffic or down an alleyway, phone in pocket. Busy transport hubs are hotspots. Outside train and tube stations, near shopping districts, tourist landmarks and concert venues. Places where people naturally have their phones out and their guard down. Late evenings are especially risky. As Londoners enjoy nightlife or tourists linger for that last photo, gangs take advantage of the darkness and crowds. The victims span all ages and backgrounds. A commuter checking emails on the way home, a tourist snapping photos on Westminster Bridge, a student texting friends outside a club in Shoreditch. No one with a flashy smartphone is immune. Some thieves operate alone, opportunists drawn by an easy chance. Others work in coordinated gangs, executing well-practiced maneuvers. In one reported incident, a man named Aaron was saying goodnight to friends outside a nightclub in Clapham when he was approached by a stranger asking for directions. As Aaron turned to help, another man suddenly grabbed his phone and bolted. It was a coordinated hit. Aaron's phone was gone before he could react. Often the theft itself is just the beginning of the ordeal. Modern smartphones are gateways to a trove of personal data and money. Many victims discover that the thieves aren't merely after the hardware for resale, they're also after the digital contents. If the phone isn't immediately locked, criminals can raid banking apps, online wallets, and payment platforms. In Aaron's case, within minutes of the snatch, the thieves managed to access his financial apps. They attempted to transfer thousands of pounds out of his accounts, even opening a new credit card in his name to maximize the theft. Aaron was fortunate. By the next day, he managed to track his discarded phone to a park and cancel the fraudulent transactions. But not everyone is so lucky. Consider another harrowing example. In late 2023, a young man named Kush was out with friends in Soho when a group of strangers struck up a friendly chat. Sensing an opportunity, they waited until Kush momentarily unlocked his phone to call a ride. In that instant, one of the men snatched the phone right out of his hands. What followed was a nightmare. The thieves swiftly changed his phone's passcode and gained access to his financial apps. Over the next hour, they drained his bank accounts, siphoned money from his cryptocurrency wallet, and even took out $22,000 in loans under his name. They then went on a spending spree with his mobile payment apps, splurging on designer goods. By the time Kush realized what was happening, tens of thousands of pounds of his hard-earned savings were gone. Seeing that unfold in front of my eyes was devastating, he later said. I felt exposed and vulnerable, not knowing when it would stop. His story thankfully did not end there. The Metropolitan Police caught the gang responsible, who turned out to be prolific thieves responsible for at least 60 other phone thefts and robberies across central London. In total, that one crew had stolen about $225,000 from victims via devices and fraud before they were brought to justice. Cush's case shines a light on a disturbing trend. Phone theft is no longer just about the device. It's a doorway to broader financial crime. London police have warned that some gangs specifically target phones not just to sell them, but to infiltrate apps and steal money. In some instances, thieves have been observed shoulder surfing, watching people in pubs or cafes as they enter their phone PIN or banking passcode, then trailing and robbing them for the express purpose of emptying their accounts. The combination of old-fashioned street theft with modern cyber fraud makes these gangs especially dangerous and hard to combat. Where do all these stolen phones end up? Some are flipped quickly on the local black market or sold in second-hand phone shops that turn a blind eye to their origins. But in many cases, London's phone theft epidemic is feeding an international criminal supply chain. Organized networks funnel large quantities of stolen phones overseas, often to countries where the phones can be used or parted out with less chance of being traced. Investigators have found that shipments of stolen smartphones flow from the UK to places as far afield as Eastern Europe, North Africa, and Asia. A significant number are believed to head to China, where a loophole exists. Unlike the UK and most Western countries, China isn't part of the global database that blacklists stolen phones by their unique identifiers. That means a phone that is rendered worthless in London, locked and flagged as stolen, can still be stripped for valuable components or even reactivated and sold on the streets of cities thousands of miles away. For the thieves and the criminal bosses they supply, it's a lucrative enterprise. The Metropolitan Police estimates that in one recent year, the roughly 80,000 phones stolen in London had a combined street value of around £20 million. A senior police commander bluntly described it as an organized criminal enterprise, noting that some of the very gangs behind phone snatches are also involved in drug dealing and other serious crime. Why would drug gangs bother snatching phones? Because, as one London police official put it, stealing phones has become easier money. The demand for devices and parts is huge, the profits rival those of narcotics, and the legal risks are often perceived as lower. If caught selling drugs, a gang member might face years in prison. If caught with a few stolen phones, they might get a far lighter sentence. This calculation has drawn more criminal groups into the phone theft business, further fueling the surge. The impact on ordinary people is profound. Beyond the inconvenience and cost of losing an expensive device, victims often feel a deep sense of violation. Our phones hold our photos, private messages, and personal information, a treasure trove of our lives. To have that suddenly taken by a stranger is frightening and angering. Victims frequently report that the theft left them anxious and hypervigilant. Arun, the nightclub victim, said after his experience he became nervous in crowds, especially after dark, and found himself constantly glancing over his shoulder when using his phone in public. Many Londoners have adopted new habits out of fear, holding their phones in front of their bodies with two hands, keeping calls short while walking, or even avoiding phone use on the street altogether. Some choose inexpensive phones or older models when out and about, leaving the pricey smartphone at home. It's an adaptation to a sad reality. The city's public spaces don't feel as safe as they once did for doing something as simple as checking your messages. Perhaps most demoralizing is the knowledge that the thieves are rarely caught. Despite the Metropolitan Police's efforts, the sheer volume of phone thefts means the vast majority go unsolved. By some estimates, fewer than 2% of London's phone theft victims ever see someone charged for the crime. In other words, a phone thief in London has a 98% chance of getting away with it. This near impunity emboldens criminals. When a thief knows that police resources are stretched and investigators are swamped with cases, there's little deterrent. London's police have faced criticism for not treating phone theft with enough urgency in the past. For a long time, if you reported a stolen phone, you might only get a crime reference number for insurance and little else. Victims often felt it was pointless to even report the crime. That attitude, however, has begun to shift as the scope of the problem becomes clear and public outrage grows. Law enforcement is now publicly acknowledging the issue and scrambling to respond. The Metropolitan Police launched special operations targeting phone snatchers, particularly in known hotspot areas like Oxford Street, Soho, and parts of Camden and Shoreditch. For example, in one 2-week crackdown focusing on prolific offenders, officers made nearly 300 arrests across London. In the City of London, the financial district which has its own police force, authorities reported cutting phone snatches by half through targeted patrols and stings in mid-2023. Police are also increasingly working with tech companies to make stolen phones less valuable. The Mayor of London convened meetings with leaders from Apple and Google, urging them to implement kill switch features and better security. Google's Android team, for instance, announced updates that would automatically lock a phone's screen if snatched and make it harder for thieves to access sensitive apps without a secondary code. The idea is to design out phone theft. If robbing someone's phone becomes unlikely to yield profit or usable data, the theory goes, thieves might think twice. It's a technological race to outsmart the criminals. Still, tech fixes alone won't stop a thief on a moped from grabbing a device. So police stress prevention as well. Public awareness campaigns advising people to be alert. Look up, look around has become a common refrain, a reminder to not walk around oblivious to one's surroundings. Londoners are cautioned to keep phones tucked away when leaving stations or entering known crowded zones, especially at night. None of this is foolproof, but every bit of caution can reduce chances of being a target. The authorities also encourage using tracking apps and registering phone serial numbers, which can help if a device is recovered. On the enforcement side, there is talk of tougher penalties and even changes in law. The government has floated new powers for police to rapidly obtain warrants, or even dispense with warrants in some cases, to search premises if a phone's GPS locator pings there, enabling them to move faster to recover stolen tech. And importantly, there's recognition that this crime spree is being driven by a small number of repeat offenders. Career criminals, some with dozens or even hundreds of past offenses, are thought to be behind a disproportionate amount of theft. One campaigner noted that it's possible just 1% of offenders are responsible for a huge share of phone thefts. Identifying and incapacitating those ringleaders could bring the numbers down dramatically. Indeed, after one notorious serial phone thief was finally jailed, police saw a noticeable dip in snatch reports in his area of operation. If smartphones are one symbol of modern urban life, bicycles are another. Eco-friendly, healthy, and increasingly popular in London as people try to avoid traffic and transit delays. But bikes, like phones, have become prime targets for thieves. In London's recent crime wave, bicycle theft stands out as another pervasive problem. Walk around any borough and you'll likely spot the telltale signs. An abandoned wheel still locked to a stand, the frame it once belonged to long gone, a heavy-duty chain dangling, bolt cut clean through, or frustrated notes left by owners pleading for the return of a stolen bike. The numbers are sobering. On average, a bicycle is reported stolen every few minutes in the capital. That adds up to tens of thousands of bikes disappearing from the streets each year. To put it in perspective, roughly 90 bikes are stolen in London every single day. Think about tomorrow at this time. By then, another few hundred Londoners will have discovered their bike is missing. Some thefts are opportunistic. A thief walking by a train station spots a bike secured with a flimsy lock and quickly breaks it, pedaling away on a new ride. Other thefts are clearly planned and targeted. High-end bicycles, like expensive road bikes, mountain bikes, or the new wave of e-bikes and e-scooters, are especially attractive to organized gangs. These valuable rides can be resold for a hefty profit or stripped for parts. Professional bike thieves have been known to cruise residential areas or train stations in vans, equipped with angle grinders or hydraulic bolt cutters, quietly cutting through locks in seconds. They'll load multiple bikes into a van and vanish into traffic before anyone notices. In some cases, they scope out cyclists ahead of time, perhaps trailing someone riding a top-of-the-line bike, noting where they lock it up every day, and then stealing it to order. London's cycling boom, fueled by efforts to go green, expanded bike lanes, and the rising cost of public transport, has unfortunately provided thieves with more targets than ever. No corner of the city is untouched by bike theft, but central London is undoubtedly the epicenter. Several inner-city boroughs consistently record the highest number of bike thefts. Hackney, Tower Hamlets, Southwark, Camden, Westminster. These areas, known for their cycling culture and dense population, see bikes vanish at alarming rates. In a recent year-long span, each of these boroughs saw well over 1,000 reported bike thefts. By contrast, outer boroughs like Bexley or Harrow, with fewer cyclists and more houses with private sheds or garages, had only a fraction of that number. But whether it's a quiet suburban street or a busy city square, if a bike is left unattended in public, it's at risk. For many victims, losing a bike isn't just a minor inconvenience. It can be life-altering for a time. That bike might have been a person's primary way to get to work or university. It might have been a pricey investment, or even have sentimental value. Beyond the financial loss, there's a psychological toll similar to other thefts. People feel less safe leaving their property out, even when secured with locks. Cyclists often describe a sense of violation, saying, "It feels like part of me was stolen." Unlike cars, which have license plates and VIN numbers, bikes are largely untraceable once stolen unless the owner had marked and registered it. The result is an environment of near impunity. Only about 1% of stolen bikes in London ever result in a suspect being charged or cautioned. The vast majority of cases are closed with no suspect identified. Many victims don't bother reporting at all, convinced it's hopeless. Surveys have suggested well over half of bike thefts go unreported to police. That means the real scale could be double what the official figures show. The lack of consequences for bike thieves can create a vicious cycle. Thieves, knowing the chances of arrest are slim, become bolder. Some are serial offenders who steal bikes as a full-time job. There are anecdotes of certain thieves boasting online about how many bikes they've stolen, or victims recognizing their stolen bike being sold at open-air markets or on internet classifieds days later. The onus often falls on victims to play detective, combing through online marketplaces like Gumtree or Facebook Marketplace, hoping to spot their bike for sale. Indeed, a cottage industry of vigilant citizens has sprung up. Groups on social media where Londoners alert each other about thefts and suspicious listings, and sometimes even coordinate sting operations to recover bikes. One popular community network called Stolen Ride Maps reported bike thefts and helps victims share information. These grassroots efforts speak to the frustration with official channels. There have been a few glimmers of hope. In the City of London, the financial district, police conducted a sting operation not long ago after a spike in bike thefts around their jurisdiction. They set up surveillance and bait bikes in strategic locations. The result was the bust of a small gang of professional bike thieves, just a handful of individuals, but it made a dramatic difference. With those thieves off the streets, reported bike thefts in the City of London plummeted almost 90% in the following months. This striking outcome revealed something important. A relatively small number of prolific thieves can account for an outsized portion of the problem. Take them out of the equation and the streets become safer quickly. It's a lesson that isn't lost on campaigners who urge the Met Police to devote more resources to targeted stings citywide. However, such operations remain the exception rather than the norm, largely due to limited police manpower and other priorities. Meanwhile, most London cyclists have learned to adapt. Walk into any bike shop and you'll see the emphasis on heavy-duty locks. Many cyclists now spend a significant sum, sometimes £100 or more, on ultra-strong U-locks or chains, and even use two different types of locks to secure their frame and wheels, making a thief's job twice as hard. People are advised to lock their bikes in well-lit, busy areas or official bike parking hubs with CCTV, though ironically, some of the busiest areas are where thieves operate most easily under cover of crowds. Bike registration services have grown. Organizations like Bike Register allow owners to mark their bike with traceable IDs and log it in a database, which can help recover it if found. However, participation is voluntary and many stolen bikes are never seen again. There is also a push for better secure bike storage in the city, more indoor parking at workplaces, more bike hangars on residential streets that can be rented by locals to safely store their bikes overnight. Each of these measures can chip away at the problem, but until the thieves face real risk of capture, or the market for stolen bikes is choked off, the threat remains. Sometimes, the brazenness of bike thieves defies belief. In one incident meant to expose police inaction, an anti-crime activist group locked a GPS-tracked bicycle right outside New Scotland Yard, the headquarters of the Met Police. Under the watchful eye of security cameras, the bike was stolen in broad daylight. The tracker later showed its location, but according to the activists, police closed the case without even reviewing the CCTV or pursuing the signal. Though this was a staged experiment, it mirrored everyday reality for many victims whose cases never seemed to get any investigative traction. Public pressure is mounting for authorities to treat minor thefts as the serious crimes they actually are, crimes that collectively cost Londoners millions of pounds and erode their quality of life. Phone thefts, bike thefts, and scams, they might seem like small-time offences individually, but together they are costing the city dearly. Beyond the measurable losses of money and property, they corrode the basic sense of safety and trust that allows a big city to function. If you can't walk down a street without fear of a bag snatcher, if you can't lock up your bicycle and reasonably expect it to be there when you return, if you can't answer your phone without worrying that the person on the other end might be trying to con you, that does something to the spirit of the city. For Londoners, there is a palpable frustration. Why are these criminals not being stopped? The answers are complicated: under-resourced police, the sheer scale of urban crowds, and crafty tactics that exploit gaps in laws and technology. But there are also glimmers of hope and resilience. Communities are more informed now. People share warnings on local forums about suspicious incidents. Victims are speaking out, refusing to just accept these crimes as part of city life. And when police and officials have focused their efforts, they have shown it's possible to make a dent, whether it's busting a prolific phone-snatching ring or jailing a con artist who preyed on the elderly. London's leaders say they are committed to turning the tide. More patrols in theft hotspots, better lighting and CCTV in vulnerable areas, and pushing for legal changes to toughen consequences. All are on the agenda. There's talk of treating the orchestrators of these theft rings more like the organized criminals they are, which could mean more complex investigations to trace the stolen goods supply lines and money flows, not just catching the low-level thief on the street. Additionally, the Metropolitan Police have started to re-emphasize neighborhood policing, putting officers back on the beat in communities so they know the local issues and can respond faster to patterns of petty crime. For the public, the advice often given is to stay vigilant, but not to live in fear. London remains fundamentally a safe city for the vast majority of the millions who live and visit here. Most outings do not end in theft or fraud, but being streetwise is now more important than ever. Londoners joke about the classic tourist who holds their bag close and looks over both shoulders. Perhaps that's becoming everyone's habit. A healthy degree of caution, whether it's not leaving your phone on the cafe table or double-checking that that call from the bank is real, can go a long way. In the fight against these crimes, there have been small victories. Stolen phones have been returned to grateful owners after police raids on resale shops. In some neighborhoods, bicycle thefts dropped significantly after concerted community police initiatives, proving that these trends are not irreversible. And scam victims, with support, have managed to get their money back in certain cases, or at least help others avoid the same fate by speaking out. Every arrest of a serial thief, every foiled scam sends a message. Yet the battle is ongoing. London's thieves and scammers are adaptive, but so are its people and protectors. The city that endured and survived centuries of challenges, from the Great Fire to the Blitz, is not about to be defeated by pickpockets and con artists. However, the issue can't be ignored. It demands constant attention, smart policing, and an informed public. London will always be a place where millions of lives intersect, in crowded trains, in vibrant markets, on busy roads. That energy is part of what makes this city special. But it also provides opportunities for those who would exploit the hustle and bustle for their own gain. The recent spike in thefts and scams is a wake-up call. It's a reminder that vigilance must keep pace with vibrancy. In this city of historic buildings and modern skyscrapers, of great wealth and great diversity, the work is underway to reclaim the streets from the petty crime wave. It's a fight for the soul of London's public life, to ensure that a walk with your phone, a bike ride to work, or a call from a stranger doesn't have to end in heartbreak and loss.